On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, the first weekend of conference action in college basketball, the full slate, top to bottom, seemed to be conference games. It came and went. It was not exactly an insane weekend. We can turn it up more. We can get more insane. Obviously, there are more fireworks to come on as conference play unfolds here. But a pretty interesting weekend nonetheless. Carolina goes to Clemson, wins by 10. Big ACC matchup. Clemson, a very ugly game. Carolina's been involved in a couple ugly games now in a row. But I still really like this Carolina team. It's just it's wild to see them go on the road and win conference games 65-55 and Virginia not be involved. But yeah, Carolina gets the big win at Clemson. Kentucky does not play well at all in Gainesville. Still scores 87 points, beats Florida, a good Florida team, you should say. Friday night, Purdue hosts Illinois, top 10 matchup. Zach Edey does not play well. Purdue still finds a way. Trey Kaufman-Renn was awesome. It was not as close as the final score would indicate, but I still like this Illinois team. The most talked about game, probably Kansas-TCU. Kansas steals one in the end. Whether that verb of steal is literal or just a figurative thing, I'll leave for others to decide. Some questionable calls down the stretch, as Allen Fieldhouse is known to sometimes produce. We'll put it that way. But in the end, Kansas gets the win, beats TCU. TCU was going for back-to-back wins in Allen Fieldhouse, actually. Auburn blows Arkansas out in Bud Walton Arena. Tennessee blows Ole Miss out. Ole Miss was undefeated. The dust settles. Houston's the only team undefeated left in the country. They beat the snot out of West Virginia. FAU is sliding a little bit. Seton Hall gets a big win over Marquette. Frank the Tank's Dolphins lose to the Bills on Sunday night, and I'm seeing all these videos about how Frank Fleming can't have anything good happen in his sports viewing career, whatever you want to call it, his life as a sports fan. All of his teams lose. And I'm thinking, Frank, Seton Hall's 3-1 and first place in the Big East and just beat Marquette. They're rolling, man. The Pirates are rolling. I think that's the key. Frank's happiness. If Frank really wants to be happy, he should get rid of the Mets, get rid of the Dolphins, get rid of everything else, go all in on Seton Hall basketball, because they are pulling off upset after upset to the point I'm not even really surprised anymore. Utah State gets a big win over Colorado State. On and on and on. Fun weekend of college basketball action. And to break it all down, I brought in Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated. He's back in the studio. Had like an hour-long conversation about all sorts of things, games from the weekend, but bigger picture topics. I don't know how many people are paying attention to what's going on at UCLA or Michigan. A couple train wrecks, we'll call them, with those two programs. The coaches, very bizarre behavior, one more so than the other. We talked about big picture things we are into and all sorts of things. It was a fun college basketball conversation. Kevin's the best. Love having him on. He was on, I think, in October. And we had him on again today. So it was great to have him back in the studio and have a fun conversation with him. So that's it. Kevin Sweeney, please enjoy. All right, Kevin Sweeney is here. We're going to talk about the first real conference slate, the full conference. I don't know how to say it anymore. It's confusing because like conference play starts in December, but it doesn't really start. But then this weekend,
it's the fake conference.
Yeah, right. So conference play got started in earnest this weekend. I don't care what order we go in. We don't have to hit every game. I kind of wanted to start with Purdue, Illinois, because that was the top 10 matchup that happened, and it happened on Friday, whereas most other games happened Saturday and Sunday. You were at the game?
Yes.
So Purdue ends up winning by 5. It was not that close. This was a game where Illinois was trying to make someone other than Zach Edey beat them. Purdue said, gladly, we will. Where are we at, I guess, big picture? We don't need to break down the game. Purdue's a better team than Illinois. But, like, where are we at big picture with both teams? Because I think it's interesting that college basketball as a whole, we're talking about how this year's wide open and there's no great teams. Meanwhile, Houston's undefeated, looks pretty freaking good. Purdue, I know they lost at Northwestern, but, I think if Purdue's jersey said something else, people would be pointing at Purdue being like, they're pretty freaking good too. So, like, I guess start with the Purdue part. Like, where are you at with Purdue in terms of, like, how big is the gap between Purdue and everybody else, or Purdue and Houston and everybody else?
I think Purdue's the best team in the country.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like, Northwestern game was what it was. And it's funny because that game just felt like the recipe that's always been there to beat Purdue, right? Like, yeah, Edey's going to get his, but make them work for it, and then just hope the guards don't make shots, be in the game late, and find a way to win when you're in a one possession game, final 4 minutes, right? Like that's it feels so simple, but then like when you walk in the gym to watch Purdue every time, you just feel like there's no chance that they lose, right?
Right.
And there's very few teams that you ever feel like that in college basketball. They just have that. I think the thing with them that's different this year versus last year is they just have more guys who can beat them, and that's or beat other teams. And that was, I wrote that after the Illinois game, right? Like Trey Kaufman dominates that game. Braden Smith's won them games. Fletcher Lawyer's won them games. Like they've just had so many more options. I mean, that was the lowest scoring game Zach Edey's had in 2 years since he became the full-time starter. And
they beat a top 10 team.
Beat a top 10 team and lead by 20 in the second half, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's just how good they are right now, and I think they have every chance to run through this thing and put up a real gaudy win total.
I agree with you. I think the parallels to Virginia in 2019 are very obvious to me. The one thing I would say, though, and I get caught up on is with Virginia, they were adding DeAndre Hunter. So they lose to a 16 seed. They're adding a guy who's an insane talent, and I don't remember where he ended up getting drafted. He was a lottery pick, right?
Yes.
So you're adding that guy to the mix. He was on the team the year before, but as we know, he was hurt. So like going into the next year, when I was scratching my head, like, am I sure that Virginia's gonna be good enough to compete for a national championship? I kept pointing to, because DeAndre Hunter didn't play last year, and that's the whole difference. With Purdue, the one thing that trips me up, and they are better, and everyone's grown, and Lance Jones is better than David Jenkins was, and they definitely are a better team, but it's just hard like to see Purdue in crunch time, like the core of what Purdue is. It's all the same dudes. And that kind of gives me pause because I'm like, I just saw these dudes lose to a 16 seed, but also I realize that's so stupid. So that's what makes it so fascinating. If it was if last year didn't happen or Purdue's jersey said Duke, everybody would be like, this is definitely the best team in the country. But it did.
And if Purdue lost to FAU in the second round instead of FDU in the first, right? It's a different story. So look, I mean, I think the thing that is just different to me is I think Braden Smith's one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
Right. And last year, Braden Smith wasn't a liability. I mean, for a freshman to average, I think 10-4-4, like that's incredibly challenging to do in modern college basketball. But he was still a guy that you could speed up. Brad Underwood said Friday after the game that he played afraid a lot last year. He doesn't play afraid anymore. Like he takes on challenges. He makes tough shots. He makes plays in big moments. He can really pass, and they can just play a bit differently. Like a little bit less reliant on sets. They can just flow into ball screens and let him kind of play pick and roll with Edey. And I mean, I don't know how you stop that. Like he's really good, and I think that to me is the big difference.
He was, last year more of a game manager, I guess, and this year he's a dude, and he's so good. And the crazy thing is Fletcher Lawyer hasn't even been – he's been good. I mean, Arizona and Tennessee games, he had 27 in each game, but, like, he really does, like – I want to choose my words carefully because I'm not ripping on the kid. I don't want to say he disappears or he's bad. Like, it's just more – it speaks to how good they are across the board that they just don't need him some nights. And that's crazy is that, like, just when you forget about Fletcher Lawyer, he'll pop in and be like, here's 25 points on your head. And then he'll just, the next game he'll have 4. And it's crazy how good those two guys have gotten. The Illinois part of it, obviously Terrence Shannon's situation has shifted the tenor of what this season can be for them. But I still think they're very good. I still think they should have sky-high expectations. I think losing Terrence Shannon means – you're probably kissing a national championship goodbye. But where are you at with what the new expectation should be for Illinois?
Yeah, I think assuming that Shannon wasn't to return at some point, I don't think you can say they can make a Final Four, win a championship. I don't think they have enough difference makers, right? And I know they think Marcus Damask can be that guy. He hasn't been consistent though, right?
Yeah.
Even in the Purdue game, I think he had 25. But all of that was after halftime. Like he took over once the game was, theoretically over. He just started getting bucket after bucket, like kind of abused Fletcher Lawyer a little bit. And he's a great player, but like I just don't think they're getting that every night from him, and they don't have enough other guys who really create their own shot and generate easy offense. But I still think they're really good. Like I still think they can make a Sweet 16. I still think they're a top 15 to 20 team without Terrence. I still think they're a team that could be maybe the second best team in the Big Ten. I think it's probably them or Wisconsin the way that they've played so far. They're just so connected right now. They're bought in defensively. Like these are the types of dudes that Brad Underwood wants to coach.
Yeah.
I think last year, everyone wants to make the parallels, and look, I don't want to blame one kid or another, but like, I just think as a whole, that group was just not a group that Brad Underwood ever really got through to. And I think for whatever reason, this group is incredibly locked in. They want to defend. They want to play for one another. They're not super invested in who takes how many shots. Like, they have that type of chemistry this year where they're probably better than their talent level, and they're fun teams to watch.
Yeah, I don't know how good they're going to end up being, but they're definitely more fun to watch than they've been the last. I think they might be more fun to watch than even the team a couple years ago that was a 1 seed that had way more talent than the Io and Kofi and like all those dudes were so good, but this team just seems more fun to watch. But how much does being fun to watch matter? How much does that factor in when it comes out to it? But yeah, I still believe in Illinois long term in the sense that we talked about this last show, TJ and I, but the fact that Illinois hasn't been to a Sweet 16 since 2005 is bonkers to me. So like if they can get over that hump, that would be. It would feel like, given how hot they started and it felt like there might be something special brewing, like if Illinois does lose in the Sweet 16, kind of a bummer of a year. But when you look at the whole thing in total, it's like, man, it's been a minute since they've been on that level. So that would I think they're good enough to still do that. I agree with you there. You mentioned Wisconsin as maybe it's Illinois and Wisconsin probably right now as the second best team in the Big Ten. This Wisconsin team is. I'm slowly talking myself into them being kind of special. Like their offense is – last year they couldn't score to save their lives. This year, A.J. Storr, the freshman Blackwell, Kesman's still there. Their guard play has been great. They got the good big dudes. Like I've been catching myself like going out of my way to watch Wisconsin basketball, which after last year I can't believe I'm saying, but that's where I'm at. Yeah, where are we at with Wisconsin? Like, do you think Wisconsin can win the Big Ten? They're not beating. They're not knocking Purdue off.
I don't think anyone can beat
right?
Purdue across 20 games, right?
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be too hard. But I mean, they are really good. I mean, offensively, as you said, the growth that they've had without making massive changes to who they are, right? Like this is still many of the same guys, but they got a little bit more athletic, a little bit more dynamic, and I think guys got better, right? Tyler Wall was hurt a lot of last year. He wasn't himself. Chucky Hepburn was probably playing a little heavier than he should, right? Like has slimmed down, has played a lot better at the point guard spot. Like everyone has made those incremental leaps, and then you add Storr, and it's just been, magic. I mean, they've been tremendous. They have enough athleticism now, right? Like I just felt there were too many times last year where I watched Wisconsin against teams that I didn't think were that good, and they just looked overmatched athletically.
Yeah.
Right? Like they looked overmatched last year, like against Northwestern athletically.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know Wisconsin's never going to recruit at an insanely high level, and I know Northwestern's a tournament team, but I shouldn't feel like this. Like it shouldn't be this drastic.
Yeah.
And it's not that drastic anymore. And now they have enough dudes where I think Greg Gard, being the coach that he is, can kind of show through.
Now you got Chucky Hepburn throwing lobs off the glass to AJ Storr.
That was the
Iowa.
most
like,
anti-Wisconsin I've ever seen.
I think that was the moment for me where I was like, yeah, all right, well, this is a different Wisconsin team. I got it. Like I've been paying attention to how good they are, but I didn't want to fully believe, and then I saw Chucky throw it off the glass, and I was like, yep, this is going to be a different Wisconsin season. Yeah, they're a ton of fun and obviously very, very good. Last thing in the Big Ten, and then we can pivot somewhere else. Northwestern beats Michigan State. This is, I think, their third win in a row over Michigan State, and I guess like coming out of this, Northwestern's already beat Purdue. They are a good team at home, and yet they lost to Chicago State. Like, is this more of Michigan State's problems that we thought might be fixed, or they might be righting the ship a little bit? Are they back to where they were, where everything's a problem again? Or like there's something special about Evanston where if you're not Chicago State, what a bizarre thing that like Chicago State could go in there and win, but Michigan State and Purdue can't.
It's crazy, and that atmosphere is special when students are on campus.
Yeah,
it's crazy for me as an alum who went to a lot of basketball games and there wasn't a lot of people there. Like not very recent, like not too long in the past. Like there was a lot of games where there was not a lot of people there, and now the student section full every game except for Chicago State when students weren't there, and they get handled by one of the worst teams theoretically in college basketball. So a little feisty Chicago State, but no excuses. So look, like I think it was a little bit of everything, right? I think it was a game that Northwestern was hungry for. Coming off getting 30-pieced by Illinois, it was a game Michigan State probably wasn't as up for as it needed to be on the road against a team with that, that hunger. I just don't think they brought the energy. Like they got outworked, and that's why I think Izzo was so upset post game. Was he just like
what? It was kind of a wild rant. I don't know. I
don't quite sure how he got to analytics.
I don't. So if I was defending Izzo, I would say he just did a poor job. I think what he probably thought was that analytics say that they defensively were pretty good going into that game. I don't know, but the way I interpret it is that everyone's telling him that the analytics say they're good, and he's just like, we are a bunch of pussies. We're a bunch of pussies in this, and like he just, and it could have been a thing like his assistants were saying, I don't know, it came out terribly where he just like no one even mentioned analytics.
Like, what is Spartan basketball? Defense and rebounding. And one of it's not analytics.
Yeah, get these analytics. But I don't know. I'm very much an Izzo defender, so like I realize I'm a little biased, but like I'm thinking maybe like someone right before he went into the press conference was telling him about how all the analytics said that, and then he lashed out at the press conference. Everyone's like, "Where's this coming from?" But it kind of did feel. I don't know. I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle where I'm like I see his point. I just don't really fully understand the point he's making. I like the attitude. I don't know what the point is, though.
The easiest way of putting it is that, like, you can still recruit dogs who take slightly fewer mid-range shots.
Right, exactly,
Like,
exactly.
it doesn't have to be all in one, right? So,
if I don't listen to the words and I just feel his energy, I'm like, yes, yeah. But then when I see his quote typed out, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
The underrated part was at the end when he said, guess I'm going to have to get the football pads back out of practice, but I might get sued for it.
Yeah.
That was like the fourth craziest thing he said in 2 minutes.
Yeah, dude. I'm going to miss these guys, though. I'm going to miss the old guard of college basketball coach. I appreciate analytics, and I like analytics, but like I do need coaches to hate analytics. I still need that in college basketball. I need coaches that are just like Tom Izzo. I need these guys because, like I can't have – I like Todd Golden enough, but like we can't have a whole sport that's just Todd Golden's.
Well, I like that Danny Hurley's like a little bit analytical,
right,
but also
but
just
he's
like
still
gets
crazy.
Out and like starts like yelling at people all the time.
Yeah,
like the whole Patino spat is really that's like what we need, right?
We
everyone
still need
doesn't
characters.
have to like everybody. Everyone doesn't have to like look at a sheet at the end of the game and be like, well, we probably should have won if we made more shots. Like breaking. That's how basketball works. If you make shots, you win the game.
Like, right. You have to make
like
shots.
we need people to bully each other. Like,
it's I think I still want analytics to play a part, but I want it to be like private. I want you, like the part of you as a coach that likes analytics, talk about that with your assistants behind closed doors. When you get out in front of the cameras, I need you to be a madman. I need more Shaka on the sideline causing controversies. I need I need all the chaos. I need characters, and we still have enough, but I just like anytime Izzo talks like that, and then people, I don't want to say attack it. He's not a victim, but like anytime like I'm digesting all of this going on, I'm like, yeah, man, guys like him are dinosaurs. They're on their way out. Huh? This is gonna be crazy.
I think if Izzo ever does retire, and I think there's a chance he just like coaches until he dies, right?
Yeah.
Like if he ever does retire, I think we just need to like ship microphones to him and Boeheim and like get them to start a podcast.
Yes, just start a podcast so they just bitch about everything. That'd be so good. That would be so good. All right, pivoting away from the Big Ten, I think the big game, at least from my perspective, coming out of the weekend was, or the big result that everyone was talking about was Kansas TCU. That Kansas gets the win over TCU. Tennyson couldn't miss for TCU. It looked like they were going to pull the upset. I'll say it. It was a bad flagrant foul call on Hunter Dickinson. I didn't love it. I know Seth Davis and Jay Wright were doing their best to defend it. Whatever. Hunter pushes off, travels, hits the game-winning. The whole thing happens. I last time I think you were here was after Kansas had played Illinois in the exhibition game, and I was talking about how I don't love this Kansas team, and we were trying to make sense of how good they can be. This feels like a perfect result where like Kansas does not play well. They are a four-man team. They have four guys that can play. Bill Self trusts nobody else, and yet they continue to win. How do we make sense of Kansas? Because I don't think they're good, and yet they're going to win 30-plus games.
Right. Their resume is unbelievable, right? I mean, TCU at home is a game you always win at Kansas, right? But like they beat Kentucky on a neutral floor. That's a really good Kentucky team. They beat Tennessee on a neutral floor. That's a terrific Tennessee team. They beat UConn.
Mm-hmm.
Like this team has all of the wins, but they do not pass the eye test.
No.
Of an elite team. And I don't know. I also don't think it feels like it's changing, right? It doesn't feel like any of these guys are starting to emerge, right? It'd be one thing if like Marco Jackson was like starting to come, or Furphy was starting to come. It hasn't really happened, and so I think the status quo just kind of is what they are. You know, they are what they are. They're a very good team. They're incredibly well coached. They're tough to kill, right?
Yeah.
Like you do not want to be playing Kansas, even if you're leading in the second half. It's never going to feel comfortable until that final buzzer sounds. McCullough's great. Dickinson's great. But, like, do they feel like a team that really wins a national championship this year? I don't think so.
I
right?
can't make any – because, yeah, every time I'm like, I swear this team is not that good, and yet they have two guys that could be first-team All-Americans, McCullough and Dickinson. You got DeJuan Harris, who, you know, as Bill Self points out all the time, he might be the best point guard in college basketball. KJ Adams is a great Swiss Army knife that does so much for him. But that's it. That's all they have. Like, they have nothing.
Well, and do you think you can win a championship in 2024 when you basically don't shoot threes?
Yeah. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre, but they're going to continue to win. I think, I don't know, the Big 12 is so good. It's they're going to make the Sweet. They're going to get a 1 seed. I've seen this story before. Like they're not that good. They're going to win 30 plus games. They're going to get a 1 seed. They're going to make a Sweet 16. And then rationally, no one can look back on the season and be like that wasn't a good team, because every single metric will be like that was a good team. It's just I don't see how they're going to win a national championship, which scares me, because that's how the sport works. Is like they find a way, or like Marco Jackson just has like a couple big games in the tournament and pushes him over an edge, and suddenly they are national champions. I don't know, but I don't really. Yeah, I just can't. I can't make sense of them at all.
Yeah,
I can't make sense of them at all. I think Houston. I think the Big 12 is Houston's to lose, but that's also an insane thing to say, because the league always runs through Kansas. Houston is the newcomer. We don't know how good they're actually going to be with a gauntlet of a Big 12 schedule. Allen Fieldhouse is good for. I mean, this is one of the wins. I like it's good for stealing like 3 or 4 wins a year. That's one against TCU. But yeah, I just like the rational part of my brain is like Houston is better than Kansas, right? But like, I'm not going to be surprised if Kansas wins the league by 2 games.
It's kind of wild, and again, we just kind of said we don't love analytics that much, but like Ken Pom says, not only is Houston the best team in the country, they're the best team in the country by far, right? I think there's a bigger gap in the like overall efficiency metric between Houston and Purdue as there is between like Arizona, or as there is between like 4 and like 11, right? Like it feels like Houston, Purdue, Arizona, and then you get down to Tennessee, and it's like Tennessee through like Wisconsin are all basically
the same. Yeah.
So Houston is well above Purdue. Purdue is well above Arizona, and then there's a bigger gap from those 3 to the next everybody else. And I don't really know that I buy that Houston is quite that, but when you beat everyone you play by 40, it's hard.
Yeah.
Right, and West Virginia's not very good, right? That was the perfect team for them to start Big 12 play with. But, I mean, they are just so disruptive defensively. Cryer and Shed are, elite guards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Kelvin Sampson, right? Like this dude, like, if everyone in this room suited up, he'd probably still have them as, like, a top 20 defense and, like, one of the best rebounding teams in the country.
I think it's Frischilla that says this about Sampson, that he's the guy. Every time I mention this, I always fuck it up. So I'm going to try not to this time. He can beat you with his guys, but then he can beat his guys with your guys. I fucked it up. Basically, the premise is like if you play a half of basketball, Kelvin Sampson's going to beat you, and then if you switch teams and he's coaching your guys, he's going to come back and he's going to be able to coach his. I'm so bad at this. Whatever, to your point, whatever 5 guys you give Kelvin Sampson, he's like, perfect, I can make this work.
It's also like he's gotten down to a T, like the types of kids he wants at Houston. It was funny. I was at a recruiting event in Northwest Indiana on Thursday, and I was watching IMG, and IMG had a Houston commit, a Syracuse commit. Their point guard's probably going to go to Kentucky. Like, your whole team is elite recruits. And, like, I could have watched 30 seconds and be like, that's the guy who's going to Houston. Like, I don't need the numbers. I don't need the roster.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one who's going to Houston. Like, it just, like, tough rebound, physical defense, don't really care if you can score because we'll have like one guard who's like elite at everything, and like that's our team. It's unbelievable. It has worked so well, and it seems to be traveling pretty well into the Big 12.
It's heartbreaking for IU fans. Every so often, whenever anyone wants to talk about how Indiana basketball hasn't been able to figure out since Bob Knight, I like to remind them that they did. They figured it out. They hired Kelvin Sampson, and they had their guy. It was all set. It was all ready to be something special, and then what a wild thing. I didn't mean to derail the show, but like what a wild thing looking back that Kelvin Sampson called some guys a little too much and got fired for it. And like in 2024, that's the dumb. If that happened today, he would serve a 0-game suspension. Literally 0 games, much less be fired.
It's a great like all-time look back. Like what happens if that never happened?
Yeah.
Like where is Indiana as a program?
So crazy. In the SEC, I think the SEC race is the most interesting. How do I say it? I think the Big 12 is the best league. I think the Big East is the most fun, and I think the SEC is the most interesting, which is a way to just cast a wide net and make sure no one's mad at me because I think a lot of conferences are good. But the SEC, big weekend for the SEC in terms of like Tennessee blows out Ole Miss, Auburn blows out Arkansas, Auburn looks legit. Kentucky, Florida's a good team. Kentucky goes to Florida, doesn't really play well, still finds a way to win at the end. Alabama's still kind of lurking, not a great record, but back to the analytics. The analytics seem to love Bama. Where are you in terms of it makes sense of that for me, your conference hierarchy, and you can throw whatever qualifiers you want. But I want to talk about the SEC a little bit. Where does the SEC stack up in terms of like the most interesting conferences, the one you like following? How excited are you to see who wins the SEC? How all that shakes up?
I think the SEC is the most talented conference in college basketball. I don't know if it's the best, but I think like there's pros, there's elite transfers. Like you look around, it's like there's a lot of dudes in the SEC. I think that's going to make it a lot of fun. I would agree that the Big 12 is just a little bit better. Part of that's because I think Arkansas hasn't been as good as we expect. They always turn it around mid-season, right? This is where Arkansas fans are always on the ledge, like first week of January. It's like, here we go. This is the year we finally suck.
But they don't lose by 32 at home every season. But that's the problem.
I think that's Auburn as much as it is. Yeah. Like, I think Auburn is super legit.
Yeah.
And I think Auburn, because they haven't beaten anyone that really matters yet, I guess the best win they have now is probably on the road at Arkansas. People are like, well, how good is Auburn really? Like, talk about a team that is blowing people out. I mean, 32 at Bud Walton is a big deal. They blew the doors off Indiana. Indiana's not that good, but you beat a team by 30, it means something. So, look, I think the race is going to be interesting. I really thought that Kentucky was the best team in the league based on the non-conference, but wouldn't win it because I was like, they're so young. Yeah. They're going to lose. Like, when they go on the road and play Florida, they're just not going to be able to find a way to win in that type of environment, right? They're going to lose games like that. Tennessee's a little bit older, a little more experienced. They're good in the regular season traditionally. They're going to find a way to win the regular season. So, for Kentucky to win that game in Florida, now I start to believe, like, this team has some real juice and just, like, a maturity about them that I don't think a lot of young teams have. They take care of the ball. They share it. They seem relatively unselfish, right? Like, they don't. If you turned on Kentucky, you wouldn't necessarily point at them and say, "Oh, that's the team full of freshmen."
Yeah,
and I think that's a great indicator of obviously the job that Cal's done, but also just the group that they have assembled.
Yeah, I think like Reed Shepherd and Dillingham coming off the bench and being cool with it, and like Reed Shepherd was always going to be cool with it because he's such a Kentucky lifer, and he was just a kid that was like always destined to play for Kentucky. So I don't think he was ever going to cause problems. But like Dillingham accepting his role and realizing however they sold that to him, that like, hey man, come off the bench and just be that dude with Reed. And they seem so comfortable and fine with that, to where I thought that might be an issue coming into the season, that they would have so many 5-stars and so many guys that, like, how do all the pieces fit together? But they seem to have sort of figured that out. I don't fully trust how good they are defensively, but that's just Cal. That's just what Kentucky is. A young Kentucky team is always that way, where Cal's just pulling his hair out. He looks. I don't want to attack the guy too much, but boy, he's getting up there in age or something. Like every time they cut to him on the sideline, it just looks like he's sweating a little bit more. His hair's a little grayer. His like clothes are like a little more disheveled. Which is how I know that this Kentucky team has promise, because he's like stressing out a little bit. He's like he's trying to reach these kids, as he says. He's like, I gotta get these kids to He sees the promise at the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, but I think winning at Florida was huge, man, because they did not. That's like a perfect game where like Florida's better than people realize, just in the sense that they're unranked, but they are a good basketball team. Kentucky did not play well, and they got put in situations late where they could fuck it up, and Bradshaw hits the big three, and Reed Shepherd hits all the big free throws, and then almost undoes the whole thing with the foul at the buzzer. Oh my God. But yeah, I've been high on Kentucky entering the season, and it's one of my great preseason takes is that I thought Kentucky might be all right, but we'll see about the defense. That's always their stories. At some point, they got to figure out the young guys at Kentucky got to figure out how to guard.
The thing I'm optimistic about with Kentucky is that I thought that the offense was going to fall off once they started playing the bigs more, right? Once Bradshaw and Onyenso got cleared, now we're playing Trey Mitchell at the 4. Like, what's it going to look like? So far, they still look really dynamic. They're shooting fewer threes, right? Like, early in the non-conference, it was just like it looked like a video game the way that they were playing. And I think Cal has kind of been like, all right, like we're Kentucky, like we have to play in the post occasionally here. But I think that they've settled into a good rhythm with those guys, and it hasn't been super disruptive to add them back, which I think is fun.
Speaking of the SEC, so I have it as Tennessee's to lose. I think Auburn is really good, but I kind of love this Tennessee team. I think it's Tennessee, Auburn, Bama, or Kentucky. Those seem to be the 4 that I think could realistically win. I can't really picture anybody else winning, but Florida, you have Mississippi State, who's going to beat some teams. You have Texas A&M still hasn't been fully healthy and put it together. Ole Miss is not as good as their start would indicate, but they're still capable of beating teams like Arkansas. South Carolina's not as bad. I think South Carolina's going to sneak. South Carolina's going to upset somebody along the way, and everyone's going to be like, "That's a horrendous loss." And then you look at it closer, and you're like, "They're not as bad as they've been." I don't know. The SEC as a whole. I think it's very, very compelling. I think that's going to be the race. If I guess like maybe we'll pivot to this. Like one of the problems this sport has obviously is that everybody cares more about the postseason than the regular season, and it gets hard sometimes to like sell people on why they should be watching the regular season. Now it's not hard for me to care. It's just hard for me to. And at a time when Purdue's the number 1 team in the country, and we all know how that ended for them last year in the tournament. It is kind of a hard sell to the public to be like, no, you got to watch these games. And then they say, who's the best team in the country? And you say Purdue, and they're like, all right, so I'll check back in March. So I think the reason I'm excited about the SEC race is because I do feel like that's something that will be super compelling. I do feel like a lot of these teams can win it. It's more up in the air than some of the other conferences are. They're more distinct tiers to each of the other conferences in my mind. But I'll ask you this, Kevin, like what else in the regular season, if you're trying to sell to the general sports fan as to why they should watch college basketball before March, what would you say is like something you can point to and be like, this is something we need to lock in on for the regular season?
I think some of the Big East storylines are a lot more fun, and I kind of mentioned it earlier with like Patino and Danny Hurley going at it. Like I just think that league has delivered so far in terms of like producing some interesting storylines. St. John's is coming, right? They're improving. Just won on the road to Villanova. You got this UConn versus Marquette race at the top, in the Big East, right? Like UConn is a brand that people will want to watch and care about and want to talk about. If they're good, and they're good again, and there's this, I think there's a real chance that they could be in the mix to repeat, especially when they get Klingon back. Like, to me, I think those battles will be just super compelling, and I think there will be so many good road games in that league, right? Like when every time someone comes to Providence, like they're gonna lose. It doesn't matter that Bryce Hopkins is out. Like that building is that building. So. I think it's hard, especially given that I don't think the Blue Bloods are as good as we thought they'd be in the preseason, right? Like I think Michigan State's a little bit worse. Duke was not impressive to me when I saw them over the weekend at Notre Dame. Like they're still figuring it out. Kentucky's there, but even Kansas, like Kansas isn't like a thrilling team. We already know what Kansas is. Like there's not an upward trajectory here.
I think Carolina's good, but they're not as good as good Carolina teams are. If that makes sense.
And that's the thing that I think that's the thing that's cool about Kentucky. is not only are they really good, they're also just like a joy to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, like North Carolina going on the road and beating Clemson like 65-55.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we defend
gross.
now. Like Hubert got us to play hard. Like that's great for like us to talk about, but like try to get the casuals involved. They're like, all right, nobody can make a shot again. This is why I hate college basketball.
You say, hey, Carolina's good, and they're like, oh, really? They're good? So what are they scoring, like 95 a game? Like, getting up and down like I know Carolina basketball to be, and you're like, well, sometimes they can, but on this night, no, not at Clemson. They were not. I agree with you. The Big East is that's a great thing to point to, because I think if you're just a casual fan looking for something to be interested in the regular season, just throw on any Big East game throughout the regular season. They're all bangers. I mean, even obviously I'm biased, but like Butler is a team that can beat any of these teams.
Every game Butler plays is electric. I don't know
like Butler's so fun to watch, and they could literally beat any team on any given night. If Butler went into, I know they just lost at home to UConn, but if Butler went to Connecticut and beat UConn, I would not be surprised. If they go to Milwaukee and beat Marquette, I would not be. They are good enough to do that. I don't think they will, but that just speaks to like what this league is that you truly have no idea what's going to happen on any given night, except DePaul sucks. That's basically
it's actually crazy, because Hurley talked a lot last year during the March run. Once he like knew they were really good, he was like, "Yeah, the Big East games are different." And there's no, and he kept saying it, and I kept being like, "Okay, but like that's just coach speak, right? Like, why is it different?" And I turn on these games, and I really can't still see what's different about it, but I know it feels different.
Yeah.
Right? There's just a different energy to those conference games. They're different. Like I don't know if it's the scouting, the preparation, it's just the coaching level, but like, there is just a level of intensity and a level of physicality. I think that might be one part of it, is that I think Big East refs are letting teams play, but not in a Big Ten way where the game stopped being watchable.
Yeah.
Like at points in the Big Ten, like you're like, all right, like we just can't have this. Like it can't be football here.
Yeah,
like,
well,
we got to put the pads away.
This is now I'm wading into dangerous waters because I'm just like throwing out shit that has no basis in reality in terms of like there's going to be people that are like, you're so wrong, but whatever. This is just, I'm going off of vibes here, Kevin. It feels like the Big East is physical as shit, but guys still make shots. Like they just like, they power through the physicality almost. Whereas the Big Ten games get physical and it just gets pulled down. Big East physicality pushes the product up. Big Ten physicality like pulls it down.
Big Ten
almost.
physicality is all like post play.
Yeah,
it's just like guys like backing each other down and like just bumping into each other. Whereas I think in the Big East it's like guards trying to dog each other.
Yeah,
like that's awesome. Like that's fun to watch. So.
And I'm sure there's data that points to that not being true at all. But
vibes
like Tom Izzo said, fuck analytics. So, yeah, but there really is. I can't put my finger on it, but like, why is the Big East? Because the Big 12, West Virginia is the worst team, and I think West Virginia they're not good, but like we were coming into the season with West Virginia, and a lot has changed since Huggins had his multiple things happen. But West Virginia was a team in the offseason where you're like, they got a lot of talent. They're putting something together in Morgantown. They're going to be pretty good. Not all of that stuck around, but like there's still some dudes. And what I'm saying is, like, you look at West Virginia, like the worst team in the Big 12. For being the worst team in a conference, they're really, really good. So if I'm going to talk about the Big East as a conference where any team can beat any team, that certainly applies to the Big 12. And yet there's something about the Big East that's like way more fun. There's something that's like way more – their games don't look the same. Like the Big 12, that's the exact – I mean, you have a TCU team that just almost won an Allen Fieldhouse, probably should have. That's indicative of like anybody can win on any given night, and yet there's something about the Big East. It's like intoxicating. It really is, and maybe it is the coaches. Maybe it's like top to bottom. It's like the characters still exist. You have Shock out on the floor, and you have Patino's back in the mix, and you have Hurley, and you have Thad Mato's been the multiple Final Fours, and McDermott, and like on down the line, like all the Ed Cooley with the Providence thing, and. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just the coaches are like way more compelling because they all have interesting storylines.
I will say, I think one other thing that might add to it is I do think that a lot of Big 12 and SEC games are just so like player driven and like dudes dependent, right? Like you win games in the SEC because you have better players. You win games in the Big 12 because you have better players.
Yeah,
I do think in the Big East there's just a bit more like stylistic variety, right? Like Shock is going to come out and press you and be fired up on the sidelines. Then you have like like UConn wants to bully you on the glass and be physical, and Pitino's going to play, his like patented pressure, right? And McDermott's going to have 4 white dudes on the floor who can shoot, right? Like I think I just think there's a little bit more like stylistic variety in terms of like how everyone wants to play. Like Villanova is not quite Jay Wright Villanova anymore, but I still think there's elements of that, right?
Yeah.
Like you see a guard post up and you're like,
Yeah.
here we go.
It reminds me of when Jalen Brunson used to throw his ass around, and Ryan Arcidiacono used to just get down there and, oh yeah, this is awesome. All right, so I made a list of teams that I think can win it all, and I want you to pick this list apart. This seems to be one of the themes of this season, is that it is wide open. But it's also, that's kind of where we're at every season. Maybe not, I don't know, but it's early, and I think this is maybe a little premature to do this, but that seems to be the vibe of this season. It's like, man, it's pretty wide open. So how wide open is it? This is my list of teams that I jotted down. I want you to tell me who needs to be added and taken off of this list. I think it's Purdue, Houston, Arizona, UConn, Tennessee, Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky, Marquette, Duke, Florida Atlantic. And I went through that fast, so maybe.
So
who else? And then I put, you could talk me into it. I'm very close with Auburn and Wisconsin.
So I think I'm there on Auburn.
Auburn should be on the list.
I would have Auburn.
Okay.
But they haven't had that moment yet where you're like, here we go. Like,
yeah.
So I get that. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that I want to talk myself into here.
Did I say Florida Atlantic? I said Florida Atlantic, and then I wrote down in parentheses by default, which is to say that like what I've seen this year is not national title good at all. It's just they're basically the same team that went to the Final Four and almost made the national championship game. So kind of by default, I'm just like, yeah, there's a world where they could.
And they've at least had moments where they've looked that good, right?
Yeah,
like when
right.
you beat Arizona neutral, you can trust trust that it's there. What they did in Orlando was great. They just have laid too many eggs.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably just like a you're hunted now thing, and I think that's harder than anyone realizes. I've talked to people from that Loyola team in 2018 a lot, and like they just don't understand. They said like they didn't even understand when they were doing it how hard it was to just handle the pressure of not only like are you expected to win every game now, but like you're expected to make the Final Four again.
Right.
How do you make the Final Four? No, like there's like 4 places where you're expected to make the Final Four in college basketball.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Florida Atlantic's one of them. Like that's
yeah.
So
and when you're at Florida Atlantic, you never envision a world where you go to Florida Gulf Coast or Charlotte and it's the hottest ticket ever, and everyone's fighting to get in, and the place is bonkers because you're coming to town and all that sort of thing. That's not something they dealt with last year for sure. So yeah, I Florida Atlantic I threw on there. Duke, you mentioned earlier, did not play great against Notre Dame. Duke is another team where it's like, if I'm going off of what I've seen on the floor, I don't know if I actually believe that. It's just they have so much talent individually, and I trust that eventually they are going to become a juggernaut. Now, they haven't been awful, but it's just like they are definitely a project. Where you were at the game in Notre Dame, that was almost a disaster.
They played really bad. They were very sleepy, like not really engaged, just kind of found a way against a Notre Dame team that just doesn't have the dudes yet.
Yeah.
I just don't think Duke really has an identity right now.
Yeah.
They're kind of stuck in between. Part of it's just like the way their roster's built. Mark Mitchell hasn't been quite as good as they expected him to be, so now it's like, all right, we don't really have wings. Can we play flip at the 5? If we do, we give up stuff defensively. If we play them at the 4, we give up spacing, right? Like, it's just been kind of messy. And I think they all kind of hoped that Tyrese Proctor was going to emerge and be like an alpha, right?
Yeah.
A guy that, like who takes over this Duke team in a late-game situation? Right now it has to be Flip, and I don't love that. Like, I think I want a guard, one of these guards to step up. I think Jared McCain's played well. Proctor has not been bad, right? I think Proctor's been a victim of his own expectation in that, like, everyone went from, he's got to go from averaging 10 points a game to being an All-American, and now he's not an All-American. People are like, yeah, Tyrese Proctor stinks. Like, why do we like this guy? And I'm like, no, he's fine. But fine's probably not winning Duke national championship.
That's what I feel like across the board. A lot of those guys at Duke are. It's like, no, they're not bad. Of course they're not bad, and they're all going to go to the NBA, and they're all going to be okay in the NBA. But like, how much of these dudes are like getting me excited? Flip does when he's killing, but he just I don't know. There's I said early when I went to the Champions Classic, like one of the things that stood out to me is they beat Michigan State, but Michigan State was way more physical, and Duke felt a little soft, and Michigan State couldn't hit shit, and that ended up being the difference in the game. Like, Duke's way more talented, but like they do feel a little soft, and to your point, like don't have an identity, and they seem way too okay with that. They seem like that's just kind of they're just like floating through every game, and they trust that they're going to be talented enough to win. So it's not there's somewhere in purgatory where it's like not like there's a disaster because we have all these 5 stars that can't mesh well together, but it's also not like they're a juggernaut. They're just like a pretty good team, and that's like basically where they've hovered.
Well, it was funny because like I saw the polls come out. Duke was like I think 12th or something. They were clearly top 15. I was like, that feels way higher than I put them. And then I looked at the teams under them. I was like,
who you're gonna put?
Well, I guess
Yeah.
I don't really think anyone else. So
So my list, I have Auburn. I think you think Auburn should be on, which is fair. I don't know. I'm just not there quite yet. I respect Auburn. Maybe I'm waiting for SEC play to see them.
My concern is that I'm calling my shot on Auburn, and I kind of did that with Baylor, and then they got housed by Michigan State and got beat by Duke. And I was like,
yeah.
So maybe I'll swing and miss. But
the snubs, the obvious snubs, I guess, would be like Creighton. I'm very much out on in terms of like national title. They're not winning a national championship. Oklahoma, Baylor, and BYU. As far as like the highly ranked teams, BYU just lost at home to Cincinnati. I think those 4 teams. Their fan bases might have heard me not mention them on the list, and they'd say, "No, hang on a second. What about us?" And I didn't forget you. I just purposely left you off the list. I don't think any of those 4 are winning the national championship.
The only one I would consider is Baylor, just because I think they have a top 5 pick in Jacoby Walter. They have a point guard. They're not good defensively at all. They haven't been since Jerome Tang left.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's hard for me to see them winning 6 in a row.
Yeah, They are very fun, but fun doesn't really factor into it. Like we said earlier, like fun. I don't know how much fun matters with when it comes to winning games in March. San Diego State is one that maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
I don't know. Is there
an
State,
FAU
maybe.
this year? I mean, San Diego State made the title. It's probably disrespectful that we keep referring to it as
yeah.
I mean, I actually think that I don't know if any of them are Final Four teams, but I think there's 4, maybe 5 Mountain West teams. So, like, if they made the Sweet 16, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah, the Mountain West could send a lot of teams. Like, Utah State just beat Colorado State at home. I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those teams made it. New Mexico's very good.
Super talented.
Yeah, San Diego State is good. They're not as good as they were last year. But last year they went to the national championship games. Like, if that's the standard, that's insane.
It's also been tough for San Diego State in that they beat Gonzaga, and everyone's like, well, I guess that means Gonzaga sucks. It's like, well, that's not fair to them.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't know how great that win really is. Like, I think Gonzaga's good, not great. But San Diego State hasn't really got enough credit for beating Gonzaga, which is still really hard to do.
Gonzaga, speaking of Gonzaga, I'm slowly talking myself into this just to make it interesting, just to add a little spice, give people something. Here's something to watch in the regular season, and you can tell me how crazy this is. What if Gonzaga doesn't make the NCAA tournament? What if Gonzaga has to win the West Coast Conference? Because Gonzaga's resume, and apologies to Gonzaga fans watching this, I have nothing against your program. I just like being provocative. I just like, throwing some shit out there and being like, ooh, wouldn't that be wild? Gonzaga's resume is not great. They basically they have one non-conference game left, and it's at Rupp Arena, and that looms large.
Good luck. Yeah.
But the West Coast Conference is not very good this year as compared to where it's been in terms of like St. Mary's was supposed to be like a top tier challenger to Gonzaga. BYU's out of the conference, like all that sort of thing. Is that a crazy thing to throw out that we might look up and like if Gonzaga drops a few games, if they lose 4 or 5 in the West Coast Conference, given that they didn't, their best win right now is USC. That's the best win. That when you think about it that way, you're like, that's not the Gonzaga teams of the past. They always they played a great schedule. They did. Like this year, they did load up on tough teams, but usually they get 1 or 2 of those wins that they can look back on and be like, yeah, listen, the West Coast Conference isn't good, but remember when we beat Arizona? Remember when we beat Duke that one time in that non-conference game? They don't really have that this year. USC's their best win right now.
Yeah, their resume is currently in. We haven't lost to anyone bad, and we haven't beaten anyone good.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is the rest of the way, you get very few opportunities to beat anyone good, and a lot of opportunities to lose somebody bad.
Right.
So I think they'll probably be okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to trust that they will,
and
until proven otherwise.
And the good thing is that like losing to St. Mary's won't hurt them. Losing to San Francisco won't hurt them as of now. San Francisco's like a top 60 team. But yeah, like if they turn around and like lose at Pepperdine
Thursday, they're at Santa Clara. Like that seems like a sneaky game where like Santa Clara could beat them.
Well, and even even last year, most of the league pushed them at least once, right?
Yeah.
They weren't as dominant, and they still had Drew Timme.
Yeah.
Now you don't have Drew Timme. Like, they're not as imposing physically. Like, I think they will make the tournament. I'm not really worried about that yet. But they're one bad loss away from everyone having to talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm not worried about it yet. I don't think they're on the bubble at all. I'm looking ahead and like, wow, I guess there is a world where we will look up in February and be like, damn, Gonzaga, they're showing up in the play-in game on the bracketologies. That's wild. We're not used to that. It's been a minute since that happened. Last thing, and then we can talk about Juwan Howard and Mick Cronin. What has to happen other than a meteor hitting Earth for Zach Edey to not win National Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think he'd have to get hurt, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone has emerged as like a true second candidate yet. There's a lot of really good players, a lot of like potential All-Americans.
Yeah.
But like RJ Davis isn't stealing National Player of the Year from Zach Edey.
It's so weird because it feels like it's the opposite of voter fatigue, which isn't to say that Zach Edey doesn't deserve it. That's not what I'm saying. But it feels like it's almost like voter complacency or something. It feels like all of us in the media have gotten to the point where we're like, yeah, it's Zach Edey's. All right, we get it. And we're like not even like I'm the same way. If you ask me who the number one contender is, I'm like I wouldn't even know. I'd have to sit down and really like think about
McCullough statistically is like low key like 26-5.
Yeah.
Right, which is awesome. But I don't know how you'd ever vote for him over Zach.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's just so dominant. It is crazy to think. Like, where will Zach Edey rank amongst all-time college basketball players if he wins 2 National Player of the Years and leads Purdue to a championship?
They win a national championship, and he wins 2 National Player of the Years.
It's going to be high.
It's going to be very high.
It's going to be best since Hansbrough for sure.
In terms of accolades, it's best since Hansbrough, yeah. In terms of talent, obviously not. But, yeah, that's
yeah, most accomplished is probably
most
the better
accomplished
word
is
than
better.
best,
Yeah, because there's obviously, I mean, Anthony Davis has like the best 1 year. Like Anthony Davis comes in, wins National Defensive Player of the Year, National Player of the Year, National Champion, Final Four, most like on down the line. He won everything, but he's only here for a year, so yeah, it does get. But if Zach Edey can get Purdue to win a national championship at Purdue should count as like 3 anywhere else. A national championship. I mean, honestly,
just exercise the demons.
Just all right. Before I let you go, we have to talk about these train wrecks that are happening in Ann Arbor and Westwood. Juwan Howard. So for those who don't know, the UCLA one's a little more straightforward. It's basically that UCLA is losing a lot of games. Mick Cronin had like his golden era of guys with Jaime Jaquez and Tiger Campbell and David Singleton and that group and Jalen Clark and all those guys that came through UCLA are now gone, and he backfilled them with young dudes, and they're just not winning games, and he's losing his mind, and he's in Mick Cronin fashion taking it out on everybody. So there's that train wreck, which we'll talk about. I want to first start with the other one, which is not quite as conventional, which is that Juwan Howard over the weekend playing Penn State in Philly, he has Phil Martelli coach the team in a move that I have never heard of. I have never seen this. This baffled me when I saw it. My only interpretation of this is that Juwan Howard knows that the end is near, and he's just like, I don't know what he's doing. Even if you did know the end is near, I don't know why you would do this. What the hell is this decision to have an assistant coach be your head coach? I don't get it. The explanation was that like Phil Martelli is a Philly legend, and we wanted him back in Philly to be the head coach. This is not the time for to be sentimental. Oof. Why would he do this? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, he said post game it was like about memories, and I was like, okay, but is that like it's memories because I'm about to leave? Like,
yeah,
what is the vibe? So, I don't know. If this was a non-conference game, right? If they played like November 15th and they were playing Penn at the Palestra, and it was like, oh, this is cool. Like, we're gonna let Phil coach the team today. That'd be fine, right? I don't think anyone would have like super visceral reactions to this. But this is a league game.
Yep.
This is coming off losing at home to Minnesota, trying to avoid starting 1-3 in the league, trying to avoid being 6-9 overall. Like, that was a very important game. I don't care if it like changes the flow at all. Like, you can't screw with anything. Like, you can't act like it's not serious. It's not the NBA, right? The NBA, like, one regular season game, whatever. Like, let's go to the bar, right? Like, that's the NBA vibe. Like, Michigan loses to Penn State. Michigan's chances of going to the NCAA tournament drop substantially. And I don't think they were going to the NCAA tournament to begin with. But, like, if he believes that on January 7th or whatever day that game was played, like, that's its own problem, right? There's a lot of self-inflicted wounds around Ann Arbor these days, and this one just felt like another one.
It's insane because they start 3-0. They beat the snot out of St. John's. That was in the Garden, if I remember right. The third game of the year. Doug McDaniel was looking so good, and suddenly you're thinking this Michigan team's not going to win the Big Ten, but like my God, they could. Like St. John's was highly thought of coming into the season. As you said, they're playing really good basketball now. So. Yeah, I was like, damn, man, this Michigan team is an early surprise, and they could be something special. They immediately turn around and lose at home to Long Beach State, and then it's like the wheels have just completely fallen off since then. And it's not just that they're losing; it's all this other stuff that's gone into it. And Phil Martelli coaching this game against Penn State would be weird in a vacuum. It's doubly weird when he's already done this, where Juwan Howard sat on the bench. And Phil Martelli was the coach, and that explanation was that Juwan Howard's heart wasn't fully healed, which, you know, his medical situation was serious, and I don't mean to downplay it, but you're trying to tell me that he can't be the head coach because his stress levels will get too high, which will impact his heart. And as all this is going on, Juwan Howard gets thrown out of a game because he's sitting on the bench yelling at the refs, and I'm like, how is that good for none of this makes any sense. I have no idea the only thing I can think is like Michigan's athletic department is so preoccupied with the football team competing for a national championship that they have no idea that all this is going on. I really think that like Jim Harbaugh and both on the field and off the field, that Michigan football team is good, but also Harbaugh has like his off-field situation and he wants a contract, but he's also cheating his balls off. And there's just so much stuff going on with Michigan football that I think the rest of the athletic department has no idea what's going on with Michigan basketball, because this is a circus the likes of which I've never seen in college basketball.
Yeah, Ward Manuel probably got the text yesterday morning like, yeah, Juwan just let Phil coach the team, and he was like, well, that's like the seventh weirdest thing that's happened this week. Like,
yeah,
whatever.
Not now. I got other things I got to deal with. I'll deal with Juwan later.
I will say this. I think big picture, it feels as though people inside of Michigan basketball do not respect Juwan Howard right now. Right? Because there's just too much stuff. Well, first of all, stuff that's happened, right? The strength coach situation with John Sanderson was really bad. But, like...
Remember when he hit a guy in the post-game hand? I don't know if you remember this, Kevin. I'll walk you through it. They played at Wisconsin, and he hit Joe Krabbenhoff. He smacked Joe Krabbenhoff. I don't know if you remember that. But some of this stuff, like, how does it get out, right? Like, why does that situation, why does it leak that he got in a shouting match with strength coach? Like, I'm sure other coaches in the country have yelled at strength coaches and trainers, and like, it happens, but it leaks. Why does the Caleb Love when Caleb Love doesn't qualify academically to Michigan, why does Caleb Love find out on Twitter? That's a great point,
right? And it's not from the Michigan athletic department statement. It's Trilly and insider after insider. Oh, I heard this. Like, there are so many leaks in that Michigan program, and when you're aligned behind one guy, especially leaks that make you look really bad, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if the strategy for Michigan is that because it is tough. Juwan Howard is a Michigan basketball legend, and he was a member of the most iconic Michigan basketball, even though the 89 team is the team that won the national championship. The Fab Five are the Michigan basketball team. And it's like the cousin of what Louisville's dealing with Kenny Payne. It's like, if we fire this guy, I think they're obviously going to fire Kenny Payne, but the reason they haven't already is because what will that do to the family, so to speak? Like, we have one of our own, and we have this connection to the past, and you can't just, if Kenny Payne had no ties to Louisville, they would have fired his ass a long time ago, but he does, and that makes it complicated. And I wonder if that's what's going on with Michigan, because like, there's no reason when Juwan Howard smacked Joe Krabbenhoff in the face, that should have been it. That would have been like, if it was any other coach, if Greg McDermott was coaching at Michigan and he did that, they'd be like, your ass is fired. Never show your face here again. But
I think at that point we still kind of believed Juwan was really good, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
they had
true.
the one seed.
That's
right?
true.
Like if that incident had never happened, and then they were 6-9 this year, and they show up next weekend. They play Wisconsin, and he slaps Joe Krabbenhoff in the face. Like, Juwan would get fired, right? Like,
yeah,
he didn't get fired
true.
because we didn't want to fire Juwan Howard when we think he's a really good coach.
It just seems like there's so many opportunities that they have to finally get out of this mess, and they just don't do it. And the only thing I can think is they're just like crossing their fingers. Juwan Howard will throw his hands up and be like, at the end of the year, just be like, I want to go back to the NBA. I'm going to go back being an assistant coach in the NBA. Because otherwise, like, I don't. This is really, really bizarre. As far as the Cronin thing, so Cronin, it is crazy. UCLA they still have talent. They are very young, but I didn't think they'd be this bad. The $1 million question with him is like, is he done at UCLA? Is he going to be Louisville's coach? Because feels like there's a lot of smoke there. A lot of stars are aligning that Mick Cronin has worn out his welcome very fast, though. Like, I don't think they're going to fire him, but it just feels like Mick Cronin he's putting forth zero effort to make this to smooth this over. Like it just seems like he's trying to go scorched earth on LA and just get the hell out of there and go back to the Midwest.
It has very big, like, late Ben Howland vibes, where he's just not an LA personality. They're scoring like 53 points every game. Like, even if they were winning these games, people in UCLA would be like, this really isn't the way we're supposed to play. This is wrong. Like, they're doing and he's not good with the media, right? Mick Cronin is a sore loser. Like he just hates losing so much and cannot, like, there are coaches who can walk into a post game and, like, very, like, proudly sit up there and be like, we played well today, we battled, we just didn't get it done. Right? Mick cannot do that. I'm not actually bothered by that. Like, I'm like, whatever. Like, he lives and dies. Like, it's like, I understand, but also, like, you don't get to skip press conferences at UCLA. You don't get to do stuff like that. And call out kids, like all the things you could do at other places, like, can't do it at UCLA.
Yeah.
And he is he's the one who decided, like, we need to go international. Like, so I was basically tracing through this all earlier today. So realistically, UCLA doesn't have as much NIL as they want, so they decided we have to recruit internationally to get players, get talent. Mm-hmm. And Mick then goes in over the summer and is telling everyone. He did an interview on the radio. I was listening back to it, and he says, like, I like these kids from international programs because, like, their coaches are, like, overseas, like, they get fired if they lose when they're, like, 16. Like, the coaches get fired, and I like having kids whose coaches get fired because that means, like, they've been coached hard, right? Their coach is, like, some guy who smokes cigarettes and, like, yells at them all day. So if they get to me, like, they're not as out of, they're not as thrown off by how I am as a person.
What an insane!
It was wild. It was a wild quote. And so then they all get here, and I think he assumes that, like, they're all going to be, like, pretty, easy to teach stuff because they've all been coached. And now he does all these interviews, and he says things like, these guys don't have the aptitude to make adjustments. He said about what their friend, they have a French kid whose name I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce. It's like Elaine Fible, and he said that he is like really, really behind on fundamentals. And I was like Mick, like, you just can't say it.
Yeah.
Like, you just, every year there's, like, one coach who really, really hates their team and, like, has no problems announcing it as much as they can. Shaheen Holloway was that guy last year. Like, he just hated Seton Hall.
Yeah.
Mick just hates UCLA.
Yeah.
But is it over? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, so here's the thing. Mick Cronin's buyout, it's a reciprocal buyout. So if he leaves or they fire him, it's the same amount of money.
Okay.
It's $20 million until April 1st, and then $16 million starting April 1st.
So if theoretically Louisville wanted to hire Mick Cronin,
right, they would have to pay
$16 million,
which is unprecedented.
Yeah,
like, that doesn't happen in football. Football coaches do not leave 16. Like, they get fired with 16 and get given $16 million. They don't leave and get paid. Someone doesn't pay $16 million to get out of a contract. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So the only question now is, like, is this so shitty that everyone just decides, like, you know what? Like, Mick, if you want to go to Louisville, we'll waive the buyout. You walk to Louisville. And that might be great for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I think Mick would do a great job at Louisville. I think Mick's a terrific coach. He just hates this group and really wants a fresh start.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think Mick Cronin's on a hot seat. I don't think he should be. That's insane. Last year, UCLA, if Jalen Clark's healthy and doesn't tear his Achilles, I'm picking them to win the national championship.
100%.
And we can do that a million times. And for every single tournament, there's always a few what ifs and all that sort of thing. But Like this is a good program. He's done a great job of getting UCLA back to they've made a Final Four, and they're very much at the, for a lot of people, unless you're winning national championships at UCLA, you're not truly back. But let's be realistic about it. Like, he's got UCLA back to the top tier of college basketball this year, notwithstanding. So I don't think one bad year is enough to be like, man, this relationship is not salvageable. It's more reading the tea leaves with how he's handling it. But that's the problem with Mick Cronin. It's like, how much of this is like, man, this dude is done with this place, and how much of it is like, no, that's just Mick Cronin. Man.
I think it's more Mick Cronin than most people think. I think a lot of people are like, oh, he must really want out. I'm like, no, I think that's Mick. Like, it's just
that's just Mick, dude. He's just kind of a dick.
But
that's what we love about him.
I don't know who the guy is yet, but if I was UCLA and I felt comfortable that there was a name out there that I could get that would be a big time hire, that wouldn't leave people disappointed, right? Like, if there's a sitting high major coach that I'm like, yeah, like, he'd come, it'd be a good marriage. I think I would seriously consider being like, you know what, Mick, like, you want to go?
Let's talk. You're not fired. Right. We're not firing you. It's just more like, do you want to go? You want to go back to the Ohio, Louisville area, right?
Getting people to mutually agree on something when it comes to contracts is really hard.
Yeah,
but it does kind of feel like now would be the right time to do it, right? He's perfect for Louisville. Is he good for UCLA? Yeah, I don't know.
Kevin Sweeney, thanks so much for making time, man. It's good to have you back in here. This was great. I enjoyed doing this.
I appreciate you having me as always. It's a lot of fun.
Plug something before you go.
Working on a bunch of different college hoop stuff over at Sports Illustrated. So check that out, si.com, including some stuff on UCLA. So
how about that?
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated. Go follow him. Appreciate it, man. All right, thank you to Kevin Sweeney. Before we get out of here, a couple things. So the Titus Bowl happens. Coach Titus obviously is a Hoosier fan. I'm a Buckeye. I grew up liking Indiana. Everybody, most people know this. Although, one, I wouldn't say it's the way to trigger me, but it's up there, is people asking me when Indiana basketball plays Ohio State basketball who I'm cheering for in the game is very high on the list of ways to trigger me. I will always and forever cheer for Ohio State to beat the absolute shit out of Indiana. And on Saturday, the Buckeyes were up 9, and I don't want to say we were pulling away. You're never really pulling away at Assembly Hall. Or at least it feels that way. Sometimes teams do blow out Indiana at Assembly Hall, but it was never a game where I was like, we're definitely going to step on their throats at this point. But to see Ohio State be up by 9 and end up losing by 6, where we couldn't hit a damn thing in the second half. I do think this Indiana team is not as bad, but I don't know. That's the thing, is like, there's a lot of parity in college basketball, which makes the sport great. But then when one of your teams is in the mix with that parity, it just becomes so agonizing because you can't really make sense of how good you actually are. And that's kind of where I'm at with Ohio State. Like, we're obviously not Final Four caliber, but I swear we're good. But then also, there's a long line of teams that are right there with us, and that's what I learned on Saturday night. Is I can't get too excited. I don't know. This Wisconsin game on Wednesday's big. I'll just put it that way. The Wisconsin game, it's not a must-win. It's how does Jake Marsh say it on what did he say that was so funny? It's like, not a must-win. It's like a must-play well or something. Or must. I swear he said that. It was like the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Or it's a must not lose or something. I don't know how he said it. That's kind of where I'm at with Ohio State on Wednesday against Michigan, or against Wisconsin. I'm sorry. It's not necessarily a must win in mid-January, but it's a please don't fucking blow it. It's a must. Please don't fucking blow it is what it is. Because I do think Wisconsin, as Kevin and I were talking, I think when it's all said and done, Wisconsin, now that Illinois is without Terrence Shannon, Wisconsin's probably going to be the second best team in the Big Ten by the end of the year. So this is a big one, having them come to your place and all that. But yeah, that's where I stand on the Indiana-Ohio State game. Hoosiers, I don't think are terrible. Hoosiers fans that sit through like the loss at Nebraska, and it's just like when things go bad for Indiana, it looks really, really, really ugly. But they still have talented dudes, and they can put it together and can play some defense here and there. And I don't know, they're not that bad of a team, but they're they're right there in the mix too, where it's just like there's just a big pile of teams that are good, not great, and that's kind of what college basketball is. And there's a handful that are great at the top, and the rest are just kind of in the mix together. And I think that's unfortunately what Ohio State's going to be. When there for a second, I thought we might be able to break through. We might be something special. Anyway, before we get out of here, the real shout-outs I want to give. First of all, I can't believe I'm saying this. I want to give a shout-out to Nikki Smokes, who I think –
Whoa.
Cody and TJ, you got to get in on this discussion. Nikki, all right, we got to be careful with this, but would Nikki Smokes be on the Barstool Chicago team, or is what I said? So backstory is this: Friday, I got involved with my first pickup basketball game here at the office. Every Friday, the guys play pickup after the day of work is done. What do we usually start, like 3 or something? I've been invited a few different times, and I couldn't make it work. And then this Friday, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stick around and play some pickup basketball with the fellas. And Nicky, I don't want to say he was the best player on the court, but he was by far the guy who surprised me the most at how good he was. Now, is what I saw on Friday, for those of you that have played more than one day, was he just hot, or is this who he is as a basketball player?
I mean, he takes it very seriously, but I think that was the best he had played in those runs, at least to my knowledge. Like he looked like a good basketball player.
No, it was crazy. He hit 2 threes over me. Now I wasn't like crawling up in his shit, and I wouldn't say I was leaving him open, but I was definitely like guarding him in a way that was like, yeah, he's not gonna hit that. And then he was like, watch this, and he hit the first one. And instead of that's on me. Instead of being like, oh, he's capable of doing that, I said, yeah, that's not gonna happen again.
Right.
and then a little later in the day, he did it again, and I was like, all right, well, respect. And I walked away thinking that's the number one thing I will remember from these Friday runs is that Nikki Smokes can hoop a little bit.
We were talking about it a little after, just like what exactly the lineup would look like for a Chicago office team, and our bench is very deep at the very least.
Yeah. I don't know who the starting 5 would be, but I feel a lot better about the depth. I feel a lot better, by the way, and I'm not trying to get out of playing in the game if this game happens, but I don't think I need to play in the game. From what I've seen, like the guys we have here can play, and not everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Why are you looking at me?
Because I said the guys can play, and Cody about broke his neck nodding along. He's like, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can.
I just think we got a deep bench. You
Dude,
got
you
guys like Spider, who are just all-time vibe guys.
Yeah, that's true. You threw an oop to me off the glass.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking maybe you were gonna give me a look, but
yeah,
that was probably the best, most athletic thing I've ever done.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah, Cody and
Titus back there somewhere. Throw it off the glass.
Cody and I played on the same team a couple of games, and yeah, you had a layup, and it was contested, and I ran down to trail because, for being open and honest and transparent, I was like, there's no way he's making this layup. He's going to get a shot blocked or he's going to miss it, and I'll just tap it in. And then you go up for the layup and just throw it off the glass, and I was stunned. I did not see that coming. I didn't know you had that in your bag. I got a deep bag.
Yeah,
dude, that was nasty. And I would have dunked it if I knew it was coming. What I would have done had I known it was coming, we need to work on a signal or something so I know to be ready for those. I would have caught it, and I don't know if I would have tapped the back of my neck and then dunked, or if I would have like caught it into a windmill.
Or an East Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would have windmill. That would have been putting a little too much on it. But I would have definitely
some light.
Yeah, tapped the back of my neck and thrown it down. But yeah, the runs were fun. Who else surprised me? Jack McCarthy's not bad.
Yeah.
Memes.
Memes is sneaky.
Yeah.
Sneaky athletic.
Although Memes plays defense with his ass. I picked up on that. That was my scouting report. Is Memes. I don't know why he does this.
There's
but like,
that ass again.
On fast breaks, he'll just like stop instead of running with the ball. He'll stop and stick his ass out. And I don't know what the strategy is, because like if you run into him, that's a foul on him. And now we're just checking the ball. Maybe that's the strategy. It's just like foul guys and stop the fast break and restart it. But he just he kept doing that. I don't think I was ever on his team. Maybe I was for one game or something. But when he was playing defense, I would grab a rebound and start pushing it. And then all of a sudden, I'd have to, like, cross over Memes' ass. Like, literally his ass. He's sticking his ass out trying to slow me down in the backcourt. Max was good. That was surprising. Like, Max can play a little. I know he played baseball in college, but for the outward perception, I guess, the character that is Max to the world, seeing him get dirty in the low post
he gets after it.
Was some Big T I knew was already good. Like he was good, but I kind of knew he could play a little bit. Who else surprised me? Who else was good that I'm not thinking of? Maybe that's it.
Trey
plays like he's good, but he's not.
Jake Marsh.
Jake Marsh is better than I realized, but he's not. He's still not good.
He's so
still
aggressive on defense. It's awesome. He's always going for like pickpocket steals and stuff.
I yelled at Jake because he kept trying to steal the inbounds pass after a made layup. He wasn't pressing. He would basically it's like stealing the outlet pass. His team would score, and then as everyone's running back on defense, he would pretend to be running back, but be looking over his shoulder, waiting for the inbounds pass to come so he could steal it. And I yelled at him, and we didn't get into a fight. I was like, come on, Jake, with that. Like I was inbounding it, and I forget who I was inbounding to. I was like, come back to the ball, and they're like, what? And I was like, Jake's pulling a bitch move, trying to steal the inbounds pass, and he was like, what? It's not a bitch move. I'm just playing hard. And I was like, Jake, shut the fuck up. Jake is so Jake. Jake is. But that's why he gets under my skin a little bit. Like it works because he's just so he plays so hard. And he's not bad. You can't leave him open. He will hit open shots. Yeah, so that's a little bit surprised. But I'm not that shocked because Jake is the best in the office, right? Isn't that his whole brand? Is he beats everybody at everything?
He's the best one here, yeah.
So I wasn't necessarily stunned about that.
Do you think he'll make a return?
Yeah, I'll play. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. We got some good runs. There's too many guys that are playing though. We have like 40 or 50 people.
We have to streamline the.
We got to figure that out.
We need a second court.
I just get so in my head about. I got to see a therapist about playing pickup basketball or something because I'm not that good to where, but I just like I don't know how hard to go and how
right. You have to find the line.
I have to find the
being
line.
A dickhead versus
but then, like, also saying
trying.
that out loud makes me sound like a
Correct.
dickhead. Where it's like, but it is the reality. Like, I'm not out there if we're playing a game to 11. I mean, we talked to TJ. We talked about this when we were talking about like a hypothetical New York, Chicago game. Like, if we were playing to 11 and the goal was beat the other team as fast as possible, I probably would shoot just about every shot for our teams. That serves nobody. That's not fun for anybody, and myself included. So like I don't want to do that. But then also,
if you don't try, it's almost just as
also it's like, okay, we get it, dude. You're really good at basketball. You're not gonna. What, if you're too only cool to try? So yeah, like I'm just out there in a torture chamber in my brain trying to figure out like how hard I should go and should I shoot this shot or not shoot this shot.
I think it was a good balance though.
And then eventually ego takes over. And like Smokes hits a couple shots at me. I'm like, fuck this kid. I want to score on him. But
I think you did have like a double somehow in one of these games to 11. It was pretty impressive. Like you had every single rebound if you wanted it.
Yeah. No, I just want to get up and down and get some cardio and some camaraderie with the boys. But yeah, I'm not as good as I don't know. The thing about me is that I've muddied the waters on how good I actually am.
Right.
Like there's some people at the office that think that I miss a shot. Like Spider was talking shit to me a little bit because I missed like 2 shots in a row. He's like, Titus, I thought you were. I'm like, Spider, NBA players miss like 20 shots in a row. Like, what do you think that every single time I shoot a basketball it's gonna go in? He's like, well, it should if you're as good as you. I'm like, I didn't. But then other people are like, he played in college, but come on, buddy, you didn't really play. You just kind of got out there every so often. You're obviously not that good, and I don't know. It's I need a therapist. I literally do. I think I just need a therapist where I just sit down and I'm like, listen, I got pickup basketball tomorrow. Here's what's going on in my brain. Walk me through it, and they'll make sense of it. But no, I had a good time. It was a lot of fun, and I feel very confident in our guys.
Yeah.
I feel like we got guys that can play here, and that's Reed is another one. Did I shout him out already? We already knew.
No,
Reed. I already knew Reed was good, but he's Lance is good. We got dudes that can play, man.
Rick
is good. Yeah, Rick is another one. All right, I think that's it. Anything else before you guys have anything?
Rutgers sucks at basketball.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about it.
I know.
I got one thing. If you're
What's up?
watching this right now, comment "Happy Birthday, TJ."
Yes.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, TJ.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. How much are you down now? Wait, what?
85, 84 pounds.
That's crazy. What's the end goal? Is there one?
0 pounds, disappear
Yeah.
completely.
That'd be pretty sick, dude.
If I just vaporize.
That would be I don't want this to happen, but
No.
that would be gnarly if you like died from anorexia.
Shit.
TJ just
Lost so much weight he fucking died.
TJ just like he died weighing like 45 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're like, God damn, dude, he was so committed to going.
Nick and KB, their New Year's resolution is to get to double digits.
TJ just sprinted through the finish line, man. Like I have nothing but respect for the man. He saw a vision and he went for it. No, it is very, very cool. TJ played in the pick. We played together in a few games, and yeah, it was fun. It was crazy to see you out there, like the way you were moving. I mean this seriously. Like you were moving like it was stunning. It was honestly stunning. Slim and athletic TJ is a sight to behold. Although
not fast and athletic.
Yeah.
you're not fast and athletic.
No.
You had a leak out, uncontested, wide open, fast break. I got the rebound and threw a long outlet pass to TJ, and I led him by about 6 inches. Now, granted, this was very late in the day, and we'd been playing a lot of basketball, and everybody was pretty gassed. But yeah, you just looked at me like I had no.
I was at a full sprint, and Titus assumed that I was like lightly jogging. I think, but I was giving it 100% effort.
When I
and
threw the
led me.
pass,
I could not go any faster.
when I threw the pass, I thought, fuck, I threw that behind him. By the time it gets there, he's gonna have to reach back to get it, and
Nah.
It was hilarious in real time because he's like, it's slim and athletic, not fast and athletic.
yeah.
We're working on it.
No, but you also looked like a guy that just had no plan for if you actually caught that pass.
No, I generally don't want the ball. On
Yeah,
offense.
you're like I was running down not because I wanted the ball. I was just.
That is what you're supposed
That's what
to
you're
do,
supposed
yeah.
to do. And now that you're throwing me the ball,
I was trying to stay
I don't
stay
want
in
to catch
motion.
this.
If I stand still for too long, people might think that
Yeah.
I want the ball. I do not want the ball.
They just had one play. It was called cardio.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
just run around.
Running around in circles,
Yeah.
staying out of the way.
Connor Griffin, another one that could
Yeah.
play a little bit. Connor apologized to me though because he was like, "I'm better than what you saw tonight." I was like, Connor, I don't even really remember what I saw tonight. But it was fun. Shout out to all the coworkers. We had a fun time playing pickup basketball. Thank you again to Kevin Sweeney coming in studio. It's been a while since we had guests in studio, so it's nice to have Kevin in here to chop it up with someone not over Zoom. Thank you to everybody watching, listening. Happy birthday to TJ. We will see you guys on Friday.